East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Thank you, Jason. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Board work session of Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. Michael, if you could please read the roll call.
Councilmember Flight.
Present.
Deputy Supervisor Lease.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember Calder-Piedmont.
Present.
Supervisor Burke Gonzalez.
Present. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this morning, we open our meeting with public portion, and we ask folks to kindly keep their comments to 3 minutes. We'll ask in the room if anybody wants to comment, and then we'll go to the phones. We have 5 work session topics. We do not have bids today. That'll be next week. So we have the community services, 2025 accomplishments and 2026 goals, and we're going to get a presentation from our Director of Human Services, Diane Patrizio, as well as our Superintendent of Recreation, John Rooney. Then we're going to have a discussion of the draft local law, Chapter 211, Public Safety and Accountability. Jake Turner will be presenting that, and we will also be hearing from Fred Thiel, who drafted the original legislation. That'll be followed by SECRA for ADU code changes. That'll be led by Eric Shantz. Then Ed Reale will be making a presentation on accessory staff housing. It's a follow-up discussion from our work session on March 17th. And then we'll have an after-hearing discussion on the Osborne Homestead Draft Management Plan. That'll be followed by liaison reports and resolutions. So first, we'll start with public portion. I know no one has signed up, but is there anyone in the room? Allison? Welcome, Allison.
Hello, hello. Good morning, board. My name is Allison Felenius, as you know. Keeping it really short this morning, but I just wanted to thank you all for putting the public safety and accountability law on the agenda for discussion this morning, and also really just here to say I'm supportive of it and wanted to just urge you to continue to discuss it, pass it. As I made a statement last time, it's very much needed in our community, and our community wants it. And so I'm just here to basically say I'm still in support of it. So please continue the work that you're doing and hopefully pass it.
Thank you, Allison. Would anyone else like to address the board? Susan? Welcome, Susan.
Susan Retzke. I very warm-heartedly and sincerely say the same thing as Allison. I very much in favor of this new law, and I appreciate all the hard work that everyone went into this, making it where it is today, very local and very, for our community, I think it's going to be a really step in the right direction. So I just wanted to say thank you all for working so hard on getting this together and put it on the agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, Jason, we'll go to the phones. Is there anybody on the line?
Yes, we have one caller on the line. Let me unmute.
Thank you.
Hello, caller ending 4221. You are on the air. Hello.
Hi, yes, good morning, Town Board. It's Jane Nearing. I'm speaking to you today as a individual resident of Amagansett and not as a member of any town committee or appointed board. I was riveted, and I don't mean that sarcastically, I really was, by the March 17th Town Board meeting where you devoted hours to the discussion of so many aspects and potential ideas and actions to create affordable housing in the town. So I just want to take a couple moments to address a small part of the discussion you had during that work session where the board was evaluating using community housing fund dollars to assist property owners for ADU construction. As I understand it, individual loans under such a program could be up to $100,000 each, with the annual amount capped at $1 million. And as I also understand it, these grants do not have to be repaid until someone maybe sells the property, or I imagine if the ADU structure no longer remains a registered ADU compliant with the town code. So I support the concept of ADU construction loans, or grants, whatever you call them, and I see it as a legitimate use of a modest portion of CHF annual revenues. However, I would strongly oppose the notion that was raised by a couple board members that the loan eligibility and granting decision will not be based on an income cap of the property owner who seeks such funding. Community housing funds are cyclical and finite in nature, and the potential uses of those funds on uses that can create affordable housing options in perpetuity for people who live and work in the town swamps the revenues raised from this precious 0.5% transfer tax. Therefore, it seems logical and ethical that the first and foremost priority of how that money is used and dispersed has to be based and laser focused on need and affordability. Those who live in this community and want to build an ADU for legitimate reasons and true affordable uses, but find themselves that they might not have the economic means to construct them, should be the only potential recipients of these loans or grants. These CHF dollars should not be siphoned off or diverted by wealthy landowners who do not need these funds and are more likely potentially to be looking to arbitrage or leverage public tax dollars for their own benefit. This is especially important as the town is considering code that will permit accessory dwelling units to be built by non-full-time and seasonal property owners. Anyway, I look forward to your further discussion on this issue, on all the things and ideas that you've come up with, and I, of course, will participate in the public hearings when they come about. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. So, Jason, do we have any other callers on the line?
There are no other callers on the line.
Okay, so we're going to move on to topics. And first up is Diane Patrizio. Who's going to be presenting. You okay, David?
Going down. I'm joking, sorry. Yeah, it's moving, you're good.
2025 accomplishments and 2026 goals for the Human Services Department. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you. Good morning, Supervisor and members of the Town Board. I'm Diane Patrizio, Director of Human Services, and I'm pleased to present our department's 2025 accomplishments and our goals for 2026. At the core of everything we do is our mission to support with dignity and respect children, adults, families in order to expand opportunities and enhance lives. Our work is grounded in improving the quality of life and guided by our values: integrity, collaboration, innovation, humanity, inclusion, and teamwork. Our 2025 accomplishments. 2025 was truly a year of growth, expanded services, and deeper community engagement. Our accomplishments fall into several key categories: case management and immigration outreach, senior nutrition, wellness 60+ programming, transportation, facility improvements, and in-home and residential repair services. Across all these areas, our focus has been the same: meeting residents where they are and responding to how needs are evolving. Case management and immigration outreach. One area I'm especially proud of is our work with immigrant families. We've built trust through community outreach and made it clear that our services are safe, confidential, and not connected to law enforcement. We have also expanded English language resources so residents can access services comfortably. Our Senior Nutrition Grab and Go program continues to be one of our most impactful services. It's not just a meal program, it's become a gateway into the entire human services system. In 2025, we served approximately 90 seniors through Grab and Go and prepared over 17,000 meals. What we're seeing is that this model is attracting younger and newly retired seniors who may not otherwise engage with traditional programming. We also continue to reframe aging through our Wellness 60+ initiative. Today's older adults are more active, engaged, and our programming reflects that shift. We expanded partnerships with the YMCA and the Arts Council and introduced programs like strength training, floor yoga, and art instruction. Participation continues to grow significantly, which tells us we're moving in the right direction. Transportation remains essential for maintaining independence. In 2025, we continued to provide essential transportation services to senior programming, such as our senior nutrition program, Wellness 60 Plus programs, and for medical trips and shopping assistance. We also strengthened operations by adding support staff to improve scheduling and efficiency. Anthony joined our staff in the position of community service worker, and he assists with client intake and puts together the driver's daily schedules. We've also made meaningful improvements to the senior center itself, painting the building, rebuilding park benches, and installing security cameras. These may seem like small things, but they significantly impact safety, dignity, and how welcoming the space feels. And finally, our in-home services and residential repair programs continue to support some of our most vulnerable residents. We ensured there were no service gaps and provided repairs to over 80 seniors. We also strengthened oversight through unannounced home visits to ensure quality care in our in-home services program. Overall, 2025 was about expanding access, modernizing services, and meeting the changing expectations of our community. Looking ahead to 2026, our goals build directly on that momentum. We plan to improve how we track and understand the populations we serve through better data systems, while continuing to strengthen partnerships, especially with organizations supporting immigrant families. We also want to deepen engagement within the Grab and Go program by incorporating nutrition education and encouraging participants to connect with other services like wellness, transportation, and case management. Again, we see this as a key entry point into everything we offer. We're working on the installation of a raised herb garden to be placed right outside the kitchen for easy access and to spice up our already delicious meals. We will continue expanding Wellness 60 Plus by adding more diverse programming, including cultural, intergenerational, and evening options to better serve working older adults. Our transportation goals focus on improving reliability, expanding access, especially, and increasing availability for medical trips. We've just increased our services to Southampton for medical appointments, offering transport Monday through Thursday, and look forward to planning some trips in 2026.
I have to say, last night, Mariella Moeller asked at my East Hampton CAC when you folks were going to the dollar store in Riverhead.
Yeah, she brought that up in lunch as well.
Said, speak to Diane.
We are focusing on building improvements, many of which address safety and accessibility. Ceiling tiles throughout the building are being replaced, in addition to the installation of new doors. We're looking into flooring replacement, door and window upgrades, and lighting improvements. These are not cosmetic. They are essential to maintaining a safe and functional environment. Our approach is to prioritize safety, dignity, and long-term sustainability of the facility. Our key performance indicators, I won't go through each number in detail, but I do want to highlight a few trends. Continued growth in meal preparation, particularly grab and go. Significant increases in Wellness 60 Plus participation, and steady demand for case management services. These trends reflect both increased need and increased awareness of the services we provide.
Diane?
Yeah.
Could I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
I just appreciate that you don't want to go through this quickly, but could you just read the number of meals served in 2025 on that top line? I think it's worth taking a moment out to talk about the phenomenal amount of services that you provide and go over some of these numbers.
Sure. The total number of meals that we prepared last year were 33,034. And that includes the grab and go and the congregate, which both seem to be growing.
And then can you talk about the transportation number of rides?
For
2025 actual.
Okay. I intentionally did not wear my glasses because I didn't
so I
want to
will.
look,
I will
but
then.
okay, let me see what I can do.
7,000, I'll read them for you, Diane. 7,916 rides.
Yeah, and regarding transportation, we focused on a lot of individualized trips for the medical appointments. So I just wanted to mention that they're kind of time inclusive. You know, they take a lot of time. If we're taking someone to Southampton and their appointments at, 10 o'clock, and someone else's might be at 1, it might be just 2 people, but those are 2 really important doctor's appointments. So, the numbers go up, the numbers go down, but there still appears to be a need.
Yeah, so these are transportation rides for folks. Seniors can call in to your department and get a ride to a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
And I just want to highlight some of these things, not to put you on the spot, but just to point out the importance of your department.
Oh, I know. I appreciate that. Yes. It's not always easy with the schedule, depending on where people's appointments are, because we're not doing the same route every day. Every day it's a different route. Different people call in, people cancel. We do ask for, at least 48 hours to 72 hours notice, so we can try to plan as many people, because we can be picking someone up in Montauk and someone in Springs to take them to Southampton. We would like to, if we can, expand to maybe appointments in Riverhead, but that again, it might increase the area, but the numbers could go down because of the distance and the complications in doing that.
But we talked about this, you saw a decrease though versus 2024 in the number of rides. And that's because some of the demographics are changing.
Yeah,
right?
well, I do believe that too. You can see how our wellness numbers have gone up. Many people drive themselves, which let's put a plug in here for parking. We need more parking. Yeah. Because it gets crowded.
I mean, I think that's, look, being candid, it's something we know, and I think the facility itself is undersized for what you offer. And I think what we're seeing is the more programs we offer, the more people are taking it. And these programs are really important for a variety of reasons. For people's physical health, staying moving, understanding osteoporosis, learning about falls, for their mental health as well. The interaction, that daily kind of use of memory, and it's a really strong investment in our community's long-term well-being. I think that, within the board, we get that we are doing a good thing by investing more in your department. Things like parking will be a challenge until we kind of identify a new kind of larger scale plan for you. But I agree with you. I think it's something that, look, if we can invest more here to help our community in the long run, it's a good place to be.
Right, because we're building wellness, we're building connectedness,
Yeah,
social aspect. I mean,
yeah, seniors are always saying how much better they feel taking our classes. But, some people only take the classes, don't come to lunch, but how we used to have the classes at Ashwell Hall, but there was a parking issue there as well, which I think, you know of. And we found, because of all the new wellness 60-plus classes, people feel more comfortable coming to a senior center than they used to. So we're having all our classes at the center.
Yeah, and listen, I think one thing that we, as a board, as we evolve, need to discuss is, what additional programs do we need? I mean, I've had outreach from the special ed programs at the school that, there's a real challenge for parents and families when, the children age out of those school special ed programs. There is really nowhere for them to go. There are programs in place that can help them, but they don't have the space. And I think that's kind of coming to you too. It's like, how do we find space to kind of evolve these programs and more services to our community?
Right. Like our lunchroom is basically full every day. The classes, a teacher can only instruct maybe 25 to 30 people in Zumba in our area. So we have the room that we have. And can I finish this? Okay. Now it doesn't even fit. Okay. I'd like to close by saying that 2025 was a year of meaningful progress, expanding programs, strengthening partnerships, and reaching more residents than ever before, and reflecting how people are aging today, more active, more independent, and more engaged. As we move into 2026, we remain committed to delivering high-quality, inclusive, forward-thinking services that reflect the evolving needs of our community. And thank you for your continued support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would just say thank you. You're always such a delight to work with, so that's what I have to say.
You too. And, let me put a plug out there. If there's anyone that sees this and has an idea for a class or a skill they have that they'd like to bring to the center, please call me.
Is drumming in the future?
Well, yes, because I did sign up to get certified, and because you know how I've wanted this forever. I mean, will nutrition be happy when we're in there drumming? No. But
it's a repetitive motion that's good for Parkinson's also. So to
yeah,
myself,
I think it's great. There's a lot into it, but you really have to get everybody active in it and not to feel inhibited. So,
well, you started the meditation, right?
I did.
You were the instructor.
So my comments are sort of in line with Tom. I love how you say reframing, redefining aging, because I think that's very important as we're aging.
Didn't you just turn 50?
Yes, I did, and I look great. I think I look good. A couple extra pounds here and there, but it's good. But I think one of the things is that my background, as most of us know here, is in exercise science, kinesiology, my wife and I. And we're firm believers that if you don't move, you're going to rust.
Right.
And I've seen that either with family members and others there, that you got to continue to move and you got to continue to socialize on that then too. Either if you're 40, 50, or if you're 88, like my pops, right? If you don't do that and engage in that or give them a space, I think that's been inherent on the town to give seniors a space for that. They're the ones that laid the pathway for us previously. So let's give them the pathway and the place to be now and to be successful at it. I love the programming that you're bringing. I think when the program you're bringing, you're building those programming, can't wait to the point where we're building the facility for you next on there. So you keep doing that. There's going to be more and more seniors out here. We want that. This is something that we come to cherish also then too. But I love what you're doing with those redefining and reframing on there. I think it's extremely important. And as I've been on the board now 9 years with Kathy also then too, it's been a primary focus where I've seen you being creative, reframing. And I think it's something that's only bringing your skills as a department head out. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to that 33,000 number. I mean, that's a huge number in 12 months in service to our community for feeding people and all the socializing that goes along with that. And it's an essential service, and it's an essential reason why we're here. What municipal government is for, is to support our community, and everything that you provide is in service to the community in your department. And I just want to thank you and your entire team. I wish you'd bring some of them next time so we can heap praise, because you have quite the team.
Yeah,
and I
we
agree
really
with everything that my fellow board members said. I think Tom said it very well, and David, expanding services and an expansion of facility goes along hand in hand with that. 33,000 meals to me is phenomenal.
In that tiny kitchen.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
I mean,
tiny.
go visit the kitchen, folks, and see where this magic happens, because it is magic in that kitchen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with the previous board members with everything that they've said, and we'll just say thank you for all that you and your team do.
Thank you. I appreciate
And
that.
I think it'll be exciting to see how the evening programs, trying to attract, because right now we're attracting seniors, 60 plus that, have the free time during the day. But we do know that some of us 60 plus are still working full time, and it'll be nice to be able to have a complement of programs that we can for working folks, because we have to move too, right? My parents used to say, use it or lose it, and so thank you.
Thank you.
Are we still calling 60 senior? It's like middle age, right? Middle age.
Young.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. All right, John, you're up.
Talking about keeping them moving.
Yes.
David, welcome
He's
to
too-
the 50s.
But yeah, you-
I'm not proud to be there. So I added some new photos this year just to give people an idea of, I don't know, pictorial, I guess, different stuff that's available around town.
Is that which path is that,
That's
John?
at Boys and Girls Harbor.
Okay, because I have to say, when we had those snowstorms, I kept getting pictures from TJ Calabrese because we were plowing the walkways and he had his dog out there, and he was just so grateful that in this weather, it could be sloppy walking, in neighborhoods, but we had kept those paths clear for folks. And
It's great that Buildings and Grounds can get out there and work on it, and sometimes also Scott's department. And then they do the same thing even at the youth park over here. We try to keep that open all winter, even with bad weather.
Those are the
Folks just wanna get
multi-use
out of the
trails that
house.
we have.
Yeah, the folks just want to get out of the house. And then we have the pickleball set up at the Playhouse, what it looks like when the nets are up. And then you got ditch planes from a couple of years ago. I think that's 2023. A day at the beach. I think that's around that time. Do you remember when that time? I think it's around then. So those are some pictures.
John, if you just bring the microphone a little taller to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And we have some more photos here, and I'll explain those as well. I'm just going to go over just our mission statement, just a little bit of who we are, in case no one knows who we are who's listening. The mission of the Recreation Department is to provide the town of East Hampton with a wide variety of safe recreational opportunities, programs, and events for all ages. Depending on the time of year, our department staffs anywhere between 30 and 190 full-time and part-time employees for positions such as recreation aides, beach attendants, lifeguards, recreation specialists, and office assistants. The Recreation Department not only runs programming at multiple East Hampton Town facility, beach, and park locations, but we also at times utilize non-town locations such as Havens Beach and Sag Harbor, the local public school facilities, and the YMCA. The Recreation Department also works with the Montauk Chamber of Commerce, who assists in administering the annual and newly named John Keeshan Memorial Montauk Turkey Trot each Thanksgiving. And I like to always say at the end, basically it's our job to make sure that the residents and guests of the town of East Hampton have fun. So, and there you have that's the newly done basketball court out in Montauk at the skate park. And on the right, you have Terry King Ball Field. And then, of course, the iconic on the bottom left, you have Big John Senior with the lifeguard program. So that's what those photos are. All right, so we'll go on to accomplishments from 2025. The new multi-purpose turf field at the Honorable Fred Thiel Junior Recreational Facility at Stephen Hans Path, pictured on the left, opened in August of 2025. Many user groups have been playing and practicing on the new turf, including East Hampton High School, who also hosted their homecoming football game there in September. Sag Harbor School District also utilized the field in late fall for some of their team's practices as well. We're getting a lot of good feedback from that facility, and it's popular. We had another record turnout in our 2025 for our John Keeshan Memorial Montauk Turkey Trot. Paid residents this past year reached 1,294, and in 2024 we had 1,165. So we had jumped from the previous year's big number, and the number of runners also was a new record in 2025 with just over 1,000. We had 1,074. That beat the previous high back in 2023 when 1,012 had ran. A lot of times the weather dictates how many people actually run, so it doesn't always line up with how many people sign up. So this year we had good weather, so we had to jump up. And the success of this past race brought in just under about $20,000 in net proceeds for the local food pantries here in East Hampton. As an example of how we like to make changes according to public needs, at the beginning of the summer season, we received the picture at the top left from a beach patron at Atlantic Avenue showing how someone with a walker had to move across the sand to sit on the bench. So that's what that top middle photo is. They'd sent it to us. And what we did was This prompted us to then change the beach mats configurations at both Atlantic Avenue and Indian Wells to have the beach mat wings move back directly to the benches. And the top right shows the change that we made at that same location. This might seem like a little thing, but folks coming over and utilizing that spot, it's a pretty big deal. So just an example of how we respond, and make changes. Pickleball tournament enrollment, again, more than doubled in 2025 for the second year in a row. And waivers collected for general pickleball participation at the Montauk Playhouse totaled just over 870 for the third straight year. And due to the continued popularity of our pickleball programs, the town decided last summer to restrict pickleball participation on the weekends at the Playhouse to residents only. This was a welcome change, which successfully increased the percentage of residents participating in our program from 63% in 2024, and it went up to 74% in 2025. So even though we have the same amount of folks, the density changed of who's participating. So now we have more residents and more room for them. We plan on continuing this going forward as well. For the lifeguards in 2025, we also replaced our oldest 4-seat 2017 UTV with a brand new 2025 Kawasaki Mule, shown on the left. And we also recently replaced the 2022 Kawasaki jet ski with a brand new 2025 Yamaha watercraft for the 2026 season. So we're always upgrading our equipment that we need for lifeguards as well.
So is the watercraft a jet ski as well, or is it a different type of?
Yeah, the term jet ski is got to use it if you're talking about a certain brand. It's kind of like if you say Kleenex, it's not just a tissue. Yeah, so I learned that mistakenly over the years. So, all right, so 2026 goals. In 2026, we will offer a new Beach Guardians lifeguard program for adults. This program will mirror our junior lifeguard model. And we held a pilot program in 2025 and it attracted 53 participants. And the plan is to offer it in both Amagansett and in Montauk this year. And below is a picture of last year's pilot program. So that's the happy group. And this coming 2026 season, we plan to roll out new handheld radios for the lifeguards, which were purchased through 2025 capital funding. In 2026, we are planning to add new surf and beach report signs to our swim beaches, which will be updated in real time by the lifeguards when they're on duty, as pictured at the center above. So that we'll be finding those at the beaches this year. There are several capital projects that are currently in the works, which will continue to move forward in 2026 at the following locations: at the Lieutenant Lee Hayes Youth Park, the park expansion and building upgrades, the Honorable Fred Thiel Junior Recreational Facility at Stephen Hand's Path. We're going to continue there with pickleball courts, a basketball court, a concourse, a shade shelter, and some additional parking. Abraham's Path Recreational Facility over on Abraham's, which is pickleball courts, a basketball court, getting that redone, and a comfort station. And at the Montauk Playhouse, we'd like to do a little upgrade improvement to the playground that's there. In conjunction with the Buildings and Grounds Department, just as outdoor AED cabinets and AEDs were installed in 2025 at both the Honorable Fred Thiel Junior Recreational Facility at Stephen Hand's Path and at Lions Field in Montauk, the same is also planned for both Maidstone Ball Field and Terry King Ball Field in 2026. The one at Terry King is already in, so that went in after this was all written up, so that's already been done. And that's with working with Buildings and Grounds, and a lot of times departments work together, and I think it's important for people to see that departments work together. It's not just a single department all the time. We need each other to get everything done. And then above is, to the right, is pictured what they look like at one of the locations. I think that one's at Stephen Hand's Path. And the last thing I always say, it's always our goal to grow our recreational options for the East Hampton town community. And if anyone has any particular skills or talents or expertise, as Diana mentioned for our department as well, that we could add to our menu of recreational opportunities for the public, please do not hesitate to contact our office. So, and there's just more photos on the last page. We have another photo of over at Boys and Girls Harbor, the new pavilion, and some of our beach vehicles for the lifeguards, and at Big Alberts, that's the Nipper Guard program. So we have.
And those signups are ongoing right now, correct?
Yeah, we didn't start doing the summer ones yet because we need all the kids to be evaluated first before they can enroll. So that enrollment will start soon. So right now we're in the full swing at the YMCA for the nippers and the juniors. And everyone's got to get evaluated before they get accepted into the summer program. So we'll make that available soon. But we've learned from the past that folks sign up without getting evaluated, and then it's confusing.
So John, do me a favor and save me some time in my liaison report. Can you tell us what's ongoing for signups now, and how can residents sign up for the town's recreation program?
Yeah, sure. So as always, you can sign up on the town's website, ehamptonny.gov. And we have the soccer program is going to start soon. It's grades 1 through 6 over at Stephen Hands. We start this weekend, and so that's available. We also have spring tennis starting up next month, Amagansett Youth Park, kindergarten to grade 5. We have obviously the lifeguard programs going on over at YMCA. That's an ongoing. We also have a boys and girls volleyball program at the Montauk Playhouse. It's going to be starting up soon. That's for grades, I think, 7 and 8. And so that's what's happening now. And then summer programs become available soon. And always something happening.
Yeah, we're working on the spring newsletter, and we're previewing all of the summer programs, so folks have that, because there's so much that you offer. It's a dense list.
Yeah, and it's always important if folks can sign up on the town's website. We offer a service called Notify Me. You can get an email or a text or both whenever something becomes available to sign up online. It just saves having to call us and say, when's it coming up? And this way you just get it, boom, and then you're ready to go. So
John, I appreciate yourself and your staff's flexibility as we've increased the recreational opportunities for the residents and our visitors, pretty much in all the hamlets, either with parks, but also the field that's at the Honorable Fred Thiel Jr. recreational facilities. It's a game changer to the town of East Hampton. We've seen that. Saw it today when I dropped my kid off over there before, I picked her up last night for practice. Either way, kids are using that, but of course it takes a lot of scheduling and balancing. So I appreciate your staff, and also, but it gives you more opportunities to do so. One thing that I would love to explore next, it's not a big one, but also maybe with Diane, is playgrounds for seniors, playgrounds for fitness. There are some new concept. Kathy's put me onto a grant that I'm going to participate in next week that keep individuals moving over 50 like me, or
over 60 like me.
There you go. Or
category, I got it.
Or under 20.
Under 80 like me.
Yeah. And if we can do that, maybe sprinkled around the communities, you'd be surprised how well they might be able to be used on there. But we'll talk more on that. I just want to thank you, because I know, same as Diane, as we continue to build and continue to grow, there continues to be a lot of workload. And I think yourself as your department's managing that very well, also along with Steve O'Brien, who assists you, obviously, as you know. So thanks.
So John, again, for statistics, because I don't think, we talk about, and you talk about a number of recreation opportunities in parks and beaches, but do you know the total number of parks and beaches? Because I looked it up, and you could tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, go ahead.
Thanks. So when I looked it up, because you didn't put it in here, and I'm always fascinated by your calm demeanor, even though I know you have a zillion things
Inside
going on.
I could be screaming, but yeah.
I found about 45 facilities. Parks and beaches.
Yeah, I mean, like, we
including
don't
the
lifeguard
Playhouse.
every single beach
Yep.
in town. Like, there's certain ones that are guarded and not. But yeah, there's a lot of nooks and crannies around the town. It took,
So that's a phenomenal amount of infrastructure and programs that you so easily take care of. Well, you make it look easy. I shouldn't say it's easy for you, but you make it look very easy. And I, again, just love these opportunities to have people come in and let folks know what keeps who and how we keep the town running. And we couldn't do it without our staff.
No, thanks. Buildings and grounds is a big part of it, because we don't
Absolutely.
handle the maintenance end, they do, so we can't take credit for that. So that would
Absolutely.
be buildings and grounds and parks.
They'll have their time to shine.
Just make it clear, I don't want credit to come my way. That's not.
No, but I do want to thank you for all that you organize, the recreation opportunities. I mean, it's the same category as human services, right? The importance of exercise, recreation, being outdoors, and having all these programs run as smoothly as they do and bring on as many people as they do is because of you and your staff. So I just want to thank you for that.
As good as our staff. Thank you, though.
How big does how many staff do you have right now? And then what do you have in the summer?
Well, when I mentioned the smallest we are is usually in December. And it's usually about 30, a little bit more than 30, somewhere between 30 and 40. And then in the summer, depending on how many lifeguards we get, then you got the summer programs and jump. So there's never a perfect number, but it's like 190 up. It could be higher than that. I mean, we broke 150 for lifeguards last summer. Yeah, and then all the recreational programming goes way up above 40s into the 50s probably. So we might even have more than what's on there, but I don't necessarily sit there and just count them all out. Right. But it's just
I know we're going to be doing a social media post because we still have some openings, right, for lifeguards and for recreational aides.
Yeah, I take applications also year round because with part-time schedules change with folks. Lifeguards, we're always taking applications year round all the time because we have to constantly work to build that staff. I mean, our town's unique because we're surrounded by water on three sides. We can't like pull from the town next to us. You know, if you were in Smithtown, you can pull people from Huntington, you can pull people from Islip. We can't really do that. So we have to kind of create our own, for staffing for everything in-house, so to speak. So I'm always looking for, like those young kids, let's say are 14, 15, and then they might get involved in something and maybe they'll stay on till they get to college. And then, so I'm always thinking of, how to add. And we do the same thing with the guards and everything else. We have to constantly be open to getting apps and meeting folks. So always send them in. And if you have, like I mentioned, if anybody has anything a skill set that they think they can bring value to the community to run something, or come talk to us.
John, you do a great job. You're also on the Disabilities Advisory Committee with me, and thank you for that. That kind of is just my one goal for you for this year or next year, which is that, look, we don't have a playground in this town that is specifically designed for people with special needs, kids with autism. We should. And, that's something I'd really like to deliver over the next few years. And I would, that's just putting that on your radar. I know and you've been helpful kind of bring it forward, but I think it's something we as a board should be looking to commit capital to and to deliver to our residents.
Right. So putting a request for the 2027 capital plan, right?
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Any other comments or questions for John?
Just reiterate what other board members said. Thanks for all that you do. The beaches are obviously incredibly important, and they're well lifeguarded, but there are so many great programs. And every time I call with a question like I did yesterday, you always pick up an answer. And as Dave and everybody else has mentioned, and you, Steve O'Brien is a great Batman to your Robin, or vice versa. You're both Batman to me.
Well done. Everyone's
Way to pull
Batman.
that one back there.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right. Well, thank you, John. We appreciate your presentation today.
Have a good day.
Take care.
Good one. Okay, Jason, if you could please bring Fred Thiel into the meeting. Okay, I don't see him yet.
He's in the room. He's starting his microphone and camera.
Okay, great. So, is it morning or afternoon? So this morning, we're going to be getting a presentation from Jake Turner on a draft local law, Chapter 211, Public Safety and Accountability. This is something that was brought to us by Ola back, I believe it was in February. We had a meeting, all of the East End supervisors and mayors. Fred Thiel was the author of the original legislation, and the municipalities were asked to tailor it to their community. So what I would love, if maybe we first have Fred kick it off.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to all of the members of the board. It's a pleasure to see all of you. For the record, my name is Fred Thiel, and in addition to be a recovering politician, I am also on the board of OLA. And have worked with Minerva Perez in that capacity. And Minerva sends her regrets that she couldn't be here this morning. She is on vacation and out of the country and on a well-deserved vacation. But we have spoken about the proposed legislation in East Hampton. And I just want to say a few introductory words. First of all, we're very grateful on behalf of Olaf that the town of East Hampton and the town board has worked with us to craft legislation that provides accountability and public safety for all of the residents of the town of East Hampton. And while this did initiate with OLA, and we had several meetings with different folks, including one with all of the mayors and supervisors on the East End of the East End towns and villages. We got great input, and I've had the chance to review the draft that East Hampton is going forward with, that they've tailored to their needs. And I can say on behalf of Minerva that OLA supports this legislation with great enthusiasm. It's not easy for a former politician to say this, but the draft that you have before you that's been crafted by your town attorney has just gotten better and is an improvement over some of the original drafts that we came up with. So my thanks to your town attorney, my thanks to the town board. We think that this is a great step forward in the town of East Hampton, and we thank the town board for considering it. And again, it's good to see all of you this morning.
Thank you, Fred, and we really appreciate you joining us. So I think what we'll do next is have Jake, if you could walk us through the draft local law, and then board members can make comments, ask questions for either you or for Fred.
Good morning, Town Board, Madam Supervisor. Thank you to Assemblyman Thiel for teeing this up for us. So what we have here, first of all, is as we look at the legislative intent of the law, we have taken what OLA had already put in draft form and worked with that and created what we have now. The first part that we talk about is separation of powers. The civics geek in me loves this because often at times when we talk about separation of powers, we talk about the separation between the three branches of government: executive, judicial, and legislative. What people always forget is that there is the separation of powers between the federal, state, and local governments as well. And there has to be that separation of powers. And what this does is it clearly delineates who's responsible for what. So it's clear who's responsible for federal immigration, that is, federal government. It indicates that under the 10th Amendment, powers are reserved to the states and then to the people. Then we go into the New York State Constitution and we talk about home rule. And explicitly, the police power is left to the local government. And that's where we are. So what we're talking about is what our local police department can do and what our local government can do. When we talk about our local police department, Chief Michael Charlo uses a term often: community, because that's what we are. He uses the term community-based policing because what he does in that position. And what we have indicated here is that we are fortunate in the town of East Hampton to have an excellent police department that does an amazing job and works well with the community, all thanks to the town board's leadership and Chief Michael Sarlo and all of our wonderful police officers. Then what we do is we still recognize what's going on currently in the world. However, we see that in our legislative intent that the police department does have certain roles that it can fulfill under its local police powers in relationship to federal law enforcement. So then we get into the meat of the substance. The first thing that we do within this draft local law is we explicitly state that the town PD, police department, cannot agree to any 287G packs. We've seen these in the news. We know what these are about. These are the detainer agreements between police departments and the federal government, and the deputizing of individuals to act on behalf of ICE. What we are saying is our PD will not do that and cannot do that pursuant to this local law. The next thing we do is we create a task force. OLA did an amazing job at, again, teeing this up. However, our supervisor is the one who was able to determine where we should go for our task force members. And what we have here is a cross-cut of many great individuals that represent many different slices of our community to ensure that we have a full breadth of knowledge and different opinions and insights so we know what's going on and we can hear from what and who we need to hear from. Now, what does the task force do? The task force provides recommendations to the town board. Within this local law, we have built-in parameters that says that the town board must respond within 30 days to the task force. Now, what's the task force working upon? That goes to our next part. The mandatory reporting goes to our public safety and accountability. Pursuant to the local law, the police department is required to notify the supervisor of any federal immigration enforcement proceeding. From there, the supervisor must notify the town board, and also the supervisor must notify the task force. So they will be completely apprised of any and all situations. The last thing that this local law does is it explicitly says that the police department is permitted to ask for identification from anybody who is participating in a immigration law enforcement activity. This is because what we have seen is often at times it is hard for many to discern who these people are when we believe that they're ICE, but this gives the police department the explicit authority to request such information. That's what our law does. And I will close by saying that this has been a community effort in drafting this local law with a number of different insights and expertises utilized for this. So I'm open to any questions at this point.
If I could just tee something up. So when Fred drafted the legislation, I think we got to version 3 was the one where what we landed on. We had it at the Latino Advisory Committee last month, and some of the comments that they made were incorporated into this, particularly once the task force makes a recommendation, the town board has to respond within 30 days. They had some other points they wanted in here. And then as far as the task force is concerned, I had reached out to the co-chairs of the Latino Advisory Committee and asked them for input. And ironically or not, we were on the same page as who we thought should be, had the composition of the task force should be. We kept it, I think, at a manageable size, because when you look at, we only have a few committees that are codified in our, that are in our code. They typically have a minimum number and a maximum number of members. They usually say, from what kind of background or what we're looking for in a, so that it's a well-rounded task force. And kind of we followed that model. We said that they would be appointed to one-year terms, And just as a reminder too, in the OLA legislation, that this local law is really sunsets on July 1st, 2029. So this is something that, would go into effect just for the next few years. So folks have questions for Jake or comments?
Yeah, Jake, if I may, I just wanted to talk about the, let's see where I am here. The civil enforcement prohibited. So I just want to talk about section 211-3. And that is, unless pursuant to a judicial warrant or otherwise required by law, town personnel shall not allow for any town resources to be utilized to investigate, detain, question, arrest, or transport any individual solely for the purposes of federal civil immigration enforcement. Now, you mentioned civics before, and the importance, I think, of home rule in our Constitution, supported by our Constitution, I think makes it clear. I know folks may question whether we can do that, but I believe the Constitution supports this section of this law.
I completely agree, namely because there are two key words used in this, warrant and law. So unless pursuant to a judicial warrant, so a judicial warrant, a warrant signed by a judge, or as required by law, therefore it's clear what our police department, town personnel, or whoever has to do. Things that we would normally have to do anyway.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. For me, I support this law as presented today because I think it supports my pledge to uphold the Constitution of the United States in the actions of my job and for the staff that works for us as well. I think it enumerates the importance of how our government is broken down into branches and how authority in our country is spread over many governments, many groups, many assemblies. And that is, again, for the protection of the people of our country. It's emotional to talk about this when you know how people are impacted, how they're hiding, how they're besieged by cruelty and inhumanity, and how contrary to our Constitution any of this activity is. And I'm happy to sit here and take this stand as a community, as a municipality for our community. Some of the violence that we've witnessed, that it's happened in these operations of immigration enforcement, like Operation Metro Surge, which was an invasion of the state of Minnesota, really set forth that even though we're a municipal government, we can take action and we must take action. So I support this as it's written.
Yeah, I agree. I support this legislation. And I just want to say, I know how much has gone into this. I've followed along since we've received the first draft from Ola and Fred. And I thank, them for their initiative to present this to us. But I know that Jake, you and your office have done a ton of work, and Kathy and many others that frankly I've not been involved in. But I certainly appreciate it because I think this law is a good law. I also want to say that I feel lucky to be in this position, and we aren't drafting this law because we're fighting against anything our police department is currently doing. I'm very appreciative to what their approach has been, and this shouldn't be seen as, I think, the board directing them to do something that they're reluctant to do. That's not the case. However, I live in the same world as everybody else, and I recognize the issues that we have, and that putting something in writing to formalize it, to make sure that it's memorialized, is something that's important for our community. So with all of that in mind, I'm fully supportive of this.
Thank you, Ian.
I'll jump on next. Look, I think this has been a long time coming. Over the last 2.5 years, the anti-bias task force has kind of raised this, and it's great to see a lot of those members now on this task force as well. I think that this has come forward is great, giving that clarification, not only just to residents, but also to PD on, what our expectations are for them to operate. I think, Kate, you called it out. This is part of a much bigger problem. We have a fundamental issue in the country with our immigration policy. And there's no way that people should be living in fear the way they are now based on their ethnicity. And that's what's happening, and that's what needs to be addressed, and that's what the Anti-Bias Task Force saw historically. So, I'm very grateful to Ola and Fred for bringing this forward. I do have one question with regards to this, just in terms of federal actions taking place in the town, and the supervisor being advised by the chief of PD, and then the board being advised by the supervisor. What are the expectations of timing for that flow of information?
In reality, we expect that in real time.
Right, that would be my hope. So I just want to maybe kind of document that it will be within 24 hours within the law.
Understood.
Jake, can you go through who the members of the task force would be, or their designees?
Yes. So we have 12 voting members. That would be somebody from a school district within the town, somebody from the local clergy, 2 representatives from the medical field, somebody from a nonprofit, somebody from a local pantry, an attorney experienced in immigration law, somebody who works in the social services, a Latino youth advocate, and a Latino business owner. And this is in addition to the ex officio members of somebody from the PD, somebody from the supervisor's office, somebody from the town attorney's office, and human services.
And does this supersede any state or federal law?
Does not supersede it. However, we are seeing that the state is currently in negotiations with the budget, and we might see something similar come down there.
So if that happens in the state budget, what do we do with this here?
At that point, my recommendation would be, we have to see what it is first, but we might not even need it here.
When is the state budget due?
Last week.
You say that with such
Sorry, Fred. Yeah, see Fred come back
comedic
left.
timing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because I still keep my eye on what goes on in the state legislature. And, the immigration issues are being discussed as part of the budget. It could still be a while before the budget is adopted, but based on my knowledge of what is being discussed in Albany and what is in this local law, there's nothing that's in conflict or in opposition that's happening on the state level. It all seems to be complementary. So at this stage, we'll see what the state of New York does, and you never know what the final product's going to look like until you see it. But I don't see anything that's being discussed in Albany right now that would be in conflict with what East Hampton Town is looking at today.
I thank you for that, Fred. I look forward to taking this to public hearing, see what the public says on it then too. I'm supportive of all the comments, and specifically Ian's comment about how our police force right now, we're not asking them to do anything else that they're not already capable of doing. I think it's also very important to recognize that there are deputized militias in other counties, other states, other portions of America on there then too. And what I don't want individuals to be fearful is someone trying to take some type of fake law action, which I think is the worst. So asking for identity is very simple. Do we get it? I don't know. But I think it's very easy for us to ask for identity. We do it at the front door. We do it all different places on there then too. I think that's a very important part about this also.
Yeah, David, you can't even get a beach pass without showing identity, let alone arresting people and taking them away.
But either way, and it's just, yeah, exactly. You took that right turn there. But I look forward to taking this public hearing, and I don't know when it's going to be noticed, but we'll draft it and I'll review it and whenever
Yeah,
it's ready.
well, what I'd like to do, we have a Latino Advisory Committee meeting this Saturday at 8 a.m. at the Senior Center on Springs Fireplace Road. I routed this to the committee last Friday. I was going to bring it to them, discuss any of the comments that came up here today, and see if they have any other input. And then we could notice it for public hearing on April 16th and hear it May 7th. I think that's what the goal would be. So, but Fred, we're really grateful for your input here. And thank you and for joining us today. We really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And Kathy, I want to thank you for your leadership on this and on so many things in the town. And also my thanks to the members of the town board. And we really appreciate the support of the idea of this legislation. And we all look forward to the public hearing. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. All right, and I know there would have been more community. I know there would have been more community here today in support of this, but folks are working in the middle of the afternoon. Okay, and thank you, Jake, because we went a couple of rounds on this, and we're grateful for that.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Excellent job, Jake. Thank you.
All right, so now we can bring in Eric Shantz. Is Eric in the waiting room there, Jason?
Yes, he is.
It sounds like Zach.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Good.
So we're going to talk now about the SECRA for the ADU code change.
Sure. So just as a reminder, these are the proposed code changes to change some of the regulations and restrictions regarding accessory dwelling units. That includes changing the minimum lot area requirement, removing some restrictions on second homeowners being able to build ADUs, and some changes to the parking requirement, as well as some other minor changes to language. So the board held a public hearing for this matter on March 5th. Actually, the board held 2 public hearings. There was a rescheduling because there were subsequent changes after the first hearing. The board discussed the latest public comments on March 17th, came to a consensus that you're comfortable with the proposed local law as written. So the next step in the process is to, for the town board, which is the only involved agency under SECRA, to declare lead agency and also make a declaration under SECRA. The planning department prepared an EAF, environmental assessment form, parts 1, 2, and 3. We recommend a negative declaration. Provided the board agrees, you should make that declaration today. And then we would send out the EAF to the Suffolk County Planning Commission for their required referral. Provided they don't have substantive comments, then the board could adopt the local law as it's drafted. So really the order of business for today is just declaring lead agency and reviewing the EAF and making a negative declaration.
Okay. Tom, you're
Yeah, no, look, I thank you. I've got no additional comments to what Eric's added. I actually have the resolution on 603 for that determination, so that will be forthcoming, provided all agree.
Yeah, so I support the negative declaration whenever it seems, is Eric gone? Whenever, okay, whenever it seems that whenever we pass codes or code changes, I think this is consistent with it being a negative declaration under SECRA. We're not doing anything different here in this instance, so I support the negative declaration. And I also support, obviously, I think declaring the town board as lead agency, since all of the aspects of the project fall under our purview, including funding, is appropriate as well.
Yeah, I agree. I support this legislation, and I agree that we should be lead agency and in a negative declaration. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Tom.
See.
Agreed. Okay. I didn't expect that to go so quickly.
Thanks, Eric.
You could have put more topics on for today.
Oh, no.
All right. Now we are going to move on to the accessory staff housing follow-up discussion, and we've got Ed Reale here to lead us in that discussion. Welcome, Ed. I don't think you were ready for this to go so quickly either.
In my experience, Ed is always ready.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi.
So on March 17th, this board discussed the accessory staff housing draft local law. You all had some comments. Our group got together and responded to those comments. I believe everyone's received a memo from me on that, or from our group. So we can run through those now, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So the first comment was whether the accessory staff housing special permit could be extended to non-conforming uses. Non-conforming uses are, well, the code, the general policy and the town code both prohibit non-conforming uses. We think that this would be an expansion of a non-conforming use, which is also contrary to the principles of having a non-conforming use, which is supposed to expire on its own weight at some point under the zoning laws. So we have not made that change, subject to the town board's comments, but I think it would be contrary to everything that is in the code now and what how this town has treated zoning in general. So we've left that without a possibility for use in a non-conforming use. Excuse me. The second comment was we had a 2,000 square foot maximum size for a single family home. We've taken the comment and reduced that maximum size to 1,800 square feet. It's based on what would be reasonably required for a three bedroom house ordinarily and what you would expect in this town. So we have taken that comment and reduced it to 1,800. The third comment was the ratio of bedrooms to bathrooms in a rooming house. We had used as a standard, we wanted some objective standard for some of the items we put into this. We used as a reference it's called the Property Maintenance Code of the State of New York. It's actually part of the Uniform Building and Fire Code, and it's incorporated into that by law. And that's what we've referred to for most of our standards, to keep it so we're not making our own wild or uninformed judgments. We've referred to that, so we've kept that in accordance with the Property Maintenance Code. So we didn't change that. So we have one bathroom for every 6 residents in a rooming house. And the same goes to the minimum size for a single room in a rooming house. We have it now at 75 square feet. It's the minimum, and 100 if it's a double room. And again, that harks back to the same property standards that we refer to in the maintenance code. The parking. There was a question about the parking. We have added a new provision. We've amended what was here as a draft the last time, so that essentially the applicant comes, because there's so many different uses that we anticipate, different properties, different zones, different business uses. It's hard to anticipate all of those things. So what we've added for the new draft of the local law is that the applicant must demonstrate to have adequate parking. There may be plenty of parking for the existing business use, or there may not be. So they need to demonstrate the two together. That's going to be adequate to the planning board in the site plan process. And we've also allowed for the planning board to have discretion to either waive or vary that requirement. So it's going to be a matter of the planning board seeing this through as to the specifics of that particular site plan. And we're leaving it in the local law to the planning board. And the other question was, another comment was, if the use is abandoned, if a business use is abandoned, how would that be addressed? And we have language in there already. We added additional language to protect the tenants, so that if a use is abandoned and there are existing tenants, that the use will be good until the termination of the leases that are existing at the time of the abandonment. There's a 1-year maximum on the leases because we didn't allow this to want to get out of control. So that would never go for more than a year. And we've also added that as a condition of the permit that every applicant's going to have to get from the housing office that they're obligated to inform the housing office that their business is ceased using as well. So that's, going to rely on the honor of the business, but it's another way of keeping track of that. And there was a question about whether it's not uncommon for a lot of businesses to, maybe even if they own their own property, to lease it, create two different entities, an ownership entity and a business entity. So there was a question of if this would work for a leasehold business. So somebody has a lease on a property, they don't own it, can they apply for this special permit? So we've amended that, we've amended the special permit to allow for lessees to apply as long as there's a written lease and they have the permission of the named landlord on the property, so they can go forward with that. So those are the changes we made, or responses to the comments and the changes we made to the bill as it stands now.
So I appreciate this, Ed, and Ian. A lot of those comments came from me, and weren't pointed; they were just realists. I think the code is stronger, and with how you're writing it now, than how I would have probably said to write it. I was just looking, how's the reality this is going to work? But if you don't have a defining mechanism that you're bringing into here to balance that code, I think that could have been trouble later on in retrospect. So I appreciate you taking my peppering of questions to everyone, coming back here and making the sauce with us right now.
Yeah, I want to thank Ed and the whole team. Mark Morgan Perez, Tina Lagaren, Eric Shantz, and Ed have been great. I think in crafting this legislation, you guys were incredibly constructive. And then from our last board discussion, where there were some very thoughtful comments, which I appreciate very much, Eric and Ed were back to work that same day. And I just can't say how grateful I am for that. And then to you, Kathy, we talked about putting this on the 21st, but I think we addressed the comments very quickly because many of these things had already been considered early on, but that's the point of this process, is to make sure we express that to everybody. But then getting it on the agenda for today is important because there's other steps such as going to the planning board, and this really facilitates that. So I'm grateful to everybody for your work on that, and especially Ed and Eric, who did a lot of the heavy lifting on both the original draft and this revision. I'm supportive of all these changes. I think it's a better law today than it was the first time, which is the idea. Again, many of the dimensions are tied to the maintenance code of the state of New York, which I think makes sense because they just have more information than us, and we're not recreating our own code within the state for that. I think the parking flexibility, both recognizing that it needs to be adequate, but also flexible if there's already adequate parking is an improvement. And then some other clarifications. So I'm supportive of all of this. I think this will be important legislation. And like any one piece of legislation, it's not going to solve our affordable housing or our housing issue here, but it's an important component. And I'm very excited about the prospect of taking this to public hearing and moving it forward.
Yes, I just would say that I agree with my fellow board members. I do think this is a very important piece of legislation as we're looking for employee housing affordability while we continue to fight those issues. I think your parking recommendation solves any issues because it's literally impossible to have one blanket parking regulation when you have such every piece of property is unique, uses are unique, so you really do need that flexibility built in. I live in a 1,400 square foot house, so 1,800 sounds lovely to me. 1,400 is tough, I will admit, with family members, and everyone else will get along better. And I fully support this moving forward. I think this is a very important tool in fighting for housing affordability and employee housing at the same time. If you have the ability to house and work on a singular piece of property, I don't think there's a better solution than allowing people to take advantage of that. So thank you so much for all the work you've done.
Yeah, I fully support this. I think this is very good legislation. Thank you to my colleague, Ms. Calder-Piedmont, and to you, Ed, and Ian, and Eric as well. I think that, look, this is just one of those things that's common sense, is, enabling employers to create housing within an existing structure it's just good policy. So I'm
It's
supportive.
great, because look how many boxes it checks, takes traffic off the road. It's really multifaceted solution.
David, did you have any comments?
No, mine were first, and,
Yeah.
and just that, when you're trying to craft code, you need backstops there to make sure any challenges legally will be defensible. And I think the way that you presented it is better than I presented it, so I appreciate that conversation.
And maybe if we could just do it 30,000 feet for those folks that maybe didn't hear the presentation on March 17th, could you just give an overview of what accessory staff housing, what basically the legislative intent is, Ed?
Well, the essential gist of this law is to permit business owners, existing business owners in the town, to construct some different forms of housing right on their same piece of property. They can have a single-family home or more than one single-family home, apartments, or a rooming house, and that's what the law now allows. We've limited that to 16 people. No business can have more than 16 people living on it. And it's subject to a special permit and a site plan approval by the planning board. So with all that said, it allows for a wide variety of businesses if they have any room anywhere in an existing building or on their property, and just about any zoning district other than the Parks and Conservation to apply for this. And an AHO, I guess it's not permitted. So, I mean, I think that's the gist of what we're doing.
Thank you. I just, because, I was just explaining this last night at the East Hampton Sag Harbor CAC, because they brought up our March 17th work session where we had all those topics on affordable housing. And I believe, didn't we limit the number of special permits?
25.
Yeah, and that we put no income restriction, and the lease term was 90 days to 1 year. And that tenants' rights were intact, and I just, so you know, this CAC was very supportive of this. So I think we can notice this on the 16th and
That's great.
add it to the,
Does it need to go to the planning board for you notice?
I think the way the schedule is going to work, it'll go to the planning board on the 22nd.
okay.
But
Want to do that first?
well, I'm comfortable noticing it, honestly. We have to receive their
Because it
comments.
has to be a
but-
month notice anyway. We can't do it.
Yeah, so it'll be, I think-
Turnaround for 255.
I think we'll go ahead and notice it. We'll hear the planning board comments, we'll hear the public comments.
Okay.
Of course, there's a chance we need to rehear
All
it
right.
if there's major changes. But I also just want to say one other thing that, and I think this has been implied, but this doesn't give any exception to, health department standards. And so this is not an intensification of use. A business has to balance this accessory use with their existing use, both with septic flow, coverage, and everything else. So I just think that that's an important element.
Very important. I mean, the health department regulations are going to be the key driver in what you can actually do on these properties.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Eric.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ed. Okay, we're up to our last topic, which is the Osborne Homestead Draft Management Plan. We held a public hearing and we heard from the community. We got a lot of written comment. Ian, you're the liaison. Do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank everybody involved in this process. It's been an ongoing process. I think this parcel, it goes without saying, what an important purchase it was, what an important parcel it is for the town of East Hampton, and I'm just incredibly excited that we're able to, own it through CPF. There have been many people from Wayne Scott, many organizations who attended property management committee meetings when this was crafted. A lot of comments, from the board. This legislation was changed after the first work session. We had a second work session, so a lot has got into it, and I think that it's an example of the public process working. I am supportive of this legislation as drafted. I don't recommend any changes. I think the good news is that in concept, we all agree. I agree with most of the speakers in terms of what they want to see on this property, the importance of that vista. I think the property management committee agrees. I think the town board agrees. In general, we all have the same general vision of that property. The vista is paramount. The water quality is important. I think there's not much disagreement there. I think where I disagree with some of the public comments that I want to address are the details. I would not be in favor of banning agriculture. This property was, one of the reasons it was purchased was for agriculture. That wasn't the reason in the CPF purchase. So I don't recall anybody objecting to that being one of the, the possible uses. And so I don't think at this point it makes sense to pull the rug out. I also don't think that there's an inherent conflict with agriculture and the Vista, or with agriculture and even the water quality. I think that some types of agriculture can hurt water quality, of course, but I just don't want to use the broad brush to say that agriculture is inherently inconsistent with a pretty vista and nearby water quality. Another disagreement, I think, is on, or not even a disagreement, but something I don't favor putting into the management plan is the landmarking. The landmarking, I think that we can decide to do that separately, landmarking the entire parcel as opposed to just the structures. That remains on the table and a possibility, I think, whatever happens with this management plan. And I do want to note one thing that I find ironic or maybe even contradictory, which is the point of landmarking a historic site is the historic vista, which was a farmstead. And so I do just want to acknowledge the irony between wanting to not allow agriculture, but also landmarking the site. I think that there's some tension there that makes me a little uncomfortable. The other, I think, major public comment that came was about the path. And I know there's a lot of concern about asphalt material being used. And frankly, I share some of those concerns. And the other comment about the path seemed to be that they didn't want it to be a loop, but rather straight in and straight out. I don't quite understand the loop part in terms of why a loop would be bad. I'm okay with a loop. And as far as the material goes, the management plan leaves it wide open for the board to decide, if a trail is, installed at all. It's not even mandated. And if it is, what material will be put down. I think it's appropriate. Nothing, no one's paving this tomorrow without further board discussion or decisions. So I think the concerns are valid. And again, I agree largely with where they're coming from. I just disagree a little bit about what that means for the print of the management plan. The property management committee, I want to acknowledge, had the same concerns. But there's another step in this that we have to choose a licensee. And so I think we have to strike a balance between saying how we want the property managed, but also being open-minded so that if this goes to RFP, we might be surprised by some of the applications and responses we get. And I don't want to preclude a potentially good application by making the management plan too precise. From the first draft to the second draft, we added important language, I think, based on public comments, based on town board comment. We added stronger language about the Vista. In fact, I think that came directly from the Wayne-Scott Heritage Project language that was proposed. We refer to the Vista as paramount. It's stronger language than the first draft. We also added stronger language about the water quality in the pond. Again, those are two very important things. I also suggested that we remove limits on certain types of agriculture, requiring organic agriculture or no-till, and explicitly prohibiting deer fencing. And I did that because I want to find the right balance. And again, I think that the goals of the water quality in the Vista are important, but I don't want to, and full disclosure here, when I'm not here, I am a farmer. So I do bring that perspective to this conversation, but I think I'm being impartial here as well. I don't think it would be right. This kind of language is precedent setting. And if we start to say, well, I know some of the public didn't want farming, but the original draft just had some restrictions. If we start to put those restrictions in and think that we can have farms, but with just the right way, I think it's going to be easy for us to become detached from the reality of agriculture. And I think that during the public comment, there was a lot of talk about the feel of, an agrarian town. I still think we are an agrarian town. We're not as rural as we used to be, but there are farms here, and I don't want us to be limited to, I don't want to be a Disney farm community where it looks like a farm, but it's not actually farming. And that doesn't mean that every parcel in town needs to be farmed. And in fact, maybe this one is not appropriate in the end, and that will all come to light through another process, which is a licensee. And frankly, I don't currently sit here in favor of a traditional farm licensee being put there, but I haven't seen the responses, so I want to be open-minded about different types of agriculture and different responses that come from the RFP. So all of that being said, I think that, again, we largely agree on the vision for what this parcel ends up being. And I don't think people should read too much into this management plan as being prescriptive of exactly what happens. It's a sort of a guide to help the board choose an eventual licensee, and that next step is going to be very important as well, and I think will add a very important layer of protection. So I'm in favor of the management plan as drafted, and I'm curious to hear what the other board members think.
Right, I'll go next. Yeah, I likewise, thank you. I agree. I think the management plan as is the right way to go with this. As it pertains to different things, the landmarking, I appreciate the concept of why people want it. However, I think it's too restrictive if you adopt landmarking on that land. And I think it ties implicitly into like the piece that, yes, this was acquired for agricultural purposes. And, look, we have needs now that are met by our agriculture processes, but in the future they may not be, and we might need to farm this land for crops or something else, and it needs to be done the right way. So I think, restricting the ability to use this land, not including agriculture, is not something I could support, so on that element. With regards to the path, I will say, I spoke with Disability Advisory Committee on this one. They would like to see an ADA accessible path. I think that could mean different things. I do think that could mean it could be a grass path if we provided the right, wheelchair for people to kind of access the property. But, I do think that path needs to be ADA accessible in some form. No, overall, I thank both the community for, bringing back their concerns with this, and to all the relevant town departments for the work they've done. It's one of those ones that I absolutely agree. And I think what drove the purchase of this property was both the history, but also the vista. I think you can understand that all the town board members here are incredibly protective of that vista. It is critical, but I also think we have to have an element of pragmatism to say, look, this was always farmland historically. I mean, maybe more recently it hasn't been farmed as intensively, but that's why the vista is there. If it hadn't been farmed, it likely could have been grown up with scrub trees and you wouldn't have the vista there. So, I kind of understand landmarking the properties, but for me, landmarking the land itself is too restrictive.
David, do you?
Go ahead.
Yes, so I'm going to start with what our legislative intent was and the purpose of this acquisition, because I want to keep focused on that. The purpose of this acquisition is the preservation of open space, agricultural lands, historic places and property, and the protection and improvement of water quality. So for me, these goals, these legislative intents that we agreed on to allow us to purchase this very important property, dictates to us what we should allow and what we should frame, and also what we should guide. We have the opportunity to guide what happens on a property. Management plans could always be amended, but they're guides. So I think in the guide, we need to acknowledge the preservation of open space, including an historic vista that not only talks about the past of how Wainscott was, but is one of the few rural vistas that when you're standing in front of that view, you get the sense, you really can get the sense of what it was like before we became before we lost some of our ruralness. So it harkens back to that time with its quietness and with its view. So that's one of the preservation of agricultural lands. Absolutely, it did have agriculture on it, but in order for the agriculture to be harmonious with the other goals of the land, including the protection and improvement of water quality, I would look for low input agriculture. I don't think it takes away from the history. Historically, back in the days, people used arsenic on farms for pesticides, and we know that's not a good thing anymore. We also know that while food production is essential for our own existence, there are certain places where the impacts may be greater and something that we can guide to be lesser as we develop a management plan, which is what a management plan is for me. It's a guide.
So I know that from the voices that came here and spoke, took time out to write us and to spoke, it wasn't one or two people. It was quite a number of people that had strong feelings about the preservation of this property. So I think the reason for that is we don't get a lot of purchases for open space, for agricultural lands, historic places and property, and protection and improvement of water quality all in one place. This is a unique situation, and I think that our guide should be unique to it as well. So this is the factor that I use, the thoughts where these goals and our responsibilities for protecting these goals and for preservation can coexist. That's where I was going. And that is the factor I used to determine what I felt would be appropriate in a management plan after listening to the community and everyone's input on this. And that is to hearken to the legislative intent of why we purchased this land. It's one of the most beautiful scenes on the East End. The pond, however, that exists there is toxic due to nitrogen loading. And any more nitrogen introduced at the water's edge would, to me, be contrary to water quality improvement. Deer fencing and the blocking of the view is inconsistent with the legislative intent of the purchase. Rural places in our town, a founding character of our town, is intrinsic to the comprehensive plan and the purposes of zoning. And there we must take care and be thoughtful and creative to be compliant with the legislative intent. I don't think the plan should offer contrary practices. I think we can preserve the history, preserve the viewshed, and have low-impact agriculture. We know that there's types of agriculture that doesn't have any nitrogen use to it. This is a perfect place to showcase this, introduce this concept to folks. There's agriculture like beekeeping, like growing funk mushrooms that are in our agriculture. They're not outside of agriculture, and they can be done without adding any kind of impact to the pond, which is just feet away from where we would be doing these activities. So there's no even a chance of filtration. So I think it's just common sense to be able to have agriculture, but also say, well, not all agriculture, and certainly not any agriculture that's heavy synthetic fertilizer use, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, the irrigation that you need, and the high chemical input. That is the food we eat, and it's great for the food we eat. It's great for how we have successful agriculture, but in this particular location, again, feet from the water's edge of a pond that's already toxic to human beings, is just contrary. It's too contrary for me. So I actually don't support high-impact agriculture. I support low-impact agriculture. I also think it's a great place to educate folks on these different types of agriculture that can happen. Even in their homes, you can keep bees, et cetera. And I think it'll be a great spot for education. I think Hillary Osborne eloquently, and through her family's history, through what she shared of her personal experiences, her family's experiences, well justifies a historic designation and landmarking for this property. I looked no further than I went back and looked at Hillary Osborne Malecki's presentation, and I think that firmly supports it. And again, it's a reason that we purchased this property. It's in our legislative intent, historic places and property. It's not separated, or property. So for these reasons, I would support the small adjustments, I think, that people are asking for. I would think deer fencing in that particular area. I don't think people put up deer fencing for an attractive enhancement of anywhere. It's a practical, and as Tom said, pragmatic use. You have to protect agriculture from deer. Bees don't have to be protected, and deer don't eat any type of mushroom. So there's two uses where you don't even need deer fencing, so it doesn't even have to come up, yet it stays true to the agricultural uses. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, Kate. David?
Sure. In 2009, I joined the United States Amagansett Life-Saving Station Society. At that time, we restored a town building and put it onto the National Historical Register. It was the last property that the town of East Hampton owned that went onto the National Historical Register. I was happy to be the lead on that. When I came onto the town board after, I presented, with the support of the town board and supervisor, a multi-listing colonial cemetery National Historical Register listing. And we were supported and successful in that. So as a town employee, I've been successful in putting 2 separate structures or two applications to be able to be deemed National Historical on the National Historical Register. I've also been supportive and helped take the lead on the restoration of Second House in Montauk, which is going to have an active application for the National Historical Register, another town-owned building. I've also been supportive, as the other town board members are and the supervisor, and deeming multiple town properties with historical designations in many of our, I think actually in all of our historical, our hamlets. The Dodge property in Springs, which has an open vista to anyone that drives through Springs, the Carl Fisher property in Montauk, and of course, this property here, as we're talking about in the Osborne property. We also supported in Amagansett the Victor D'Amico Art Barge and studio to be on the National Historical Register, even though those aren't town-owned properties, but I supported that also. What I do have to say is I made a mistake in the designation of the Dodge and Carl Fisher properties lands as historically designated on there. That one will bother me, but I think one of the best things an elected official can do is admit their mistakes. And in this conversation that came out, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't. I think the designation of a land is duplicative and unneeded based on what the CPF law is and the guide rails that the town of East Hampton has. I also want to go back to heritage and traditions. If I asked anyone here to give me 3 words about what the heritage or tradition of Wainscott would be, I would take a good bet that farming would be one of the first words they would use. The town board recently has been successful in bringing back 3 dairy farms. The Baker Dairy Farm, and we purchased that from the Bistrine properties. It's in Bistrines, that's in Amagansett. The Cheryl's Dairy Farm at 20 Springs Fireplace Road, that was a dairy farm, and it's coming back into farming. And the Osborne Dairy Farm, which we're talking about here. Dairy farming is cows. Cows don't need deer fencing, and it's a form of agriculture. Still, you can't limit it. But we've also been successful in recently then too, is using the CPF funds for Cedar Street to bring back historical farmlands, Farmhouse Lane in Montauk, in Springs, and also Stony Hill Farms. I believe heritage is defined by traditions, achievements, and physical artifacts that can be, beliefs and physical artifacts can be passed down by generations. Within the management plan, we have aerial views from the 1930s. And these aerial views of 1930s, and I'll quote from page 29, the people of Wainscott were hardworking folks living on the land and the sea, life revolving around their crops, their animals, and weather. In a time before social services agencies, and they relied on each other, neighbors helping neighbors. I wish I lived in the 1930s again. I think we lose that a little bit here and there. I go back to the town comprehensive plan. Town comprehensive plan and our goals, I think we are maintaining them by the purchases of property. Goal 1 is to maintain and restore when necessary the East Hampton town's rural and semi-rural character and the unique qualities of each of East Hampton's historical communities. I think we're doing that on this property by purchasing it and this management plan. Goal 2 is take forceful measures to protect and restore environmental groundwater. I think we can do that by now that we have access to the pond. Goal 3 is to reduce the total build out of the town of East Hampton. And that goal 3 is actually very important because if you go to the same comprehensive plan and you bring up what the goals for Wainscott, the goals for Wainscott under agriculture has to protect traditional agricultural industry, part of Suffolk County's agricultural industry, ranked first in New York State in agricultural land base south of Montauk Highway. Identified the best farmland in New York State. This agricultural land in Wainscott has been identified and eligible inclusion for East Hampton's scenic area statewide significance, and they also talk about upzoning of ag lands to try to protect it from overall build out. If the town didn't buy this property when we had the opportunity, which is a second bite of the apple, it'd be hedgerows, green, a Leland cypress across the front and multiple houses, and there would be no vista. the town board under the supervisor, Kathy Burke-Gonzalez, I believe has saved a cherished piece of land in Vista, and I believe we can make it all work. When I want to go out to then the next goal, which I believe is goal 7, I'll go goal 7 before 6, protect historical buildings, hamlets, neighborhoods, landscapes, and scenic vistas from incompatible development. We did that during this purchase. I think the management plan does it also. Where I disagree with members of the public on this is from goal 6. Goal 6 on this property specifically is to encourage and retain traditional local resource-based fishing and agricultural industries that practice environmentally sensitive methods and operations. That is something that I think we are bound to protect. And by deeming some of the best farmland that is in the that it's been noted in the town's comprehensive plan and deeming it not allow for historical farming, I don't think we are abiding by what our comp plan is and what our bedrock of town government is. By that, I can go further. I have the Wainscott Dumplings book here. The Wainscott Dumpling book, which is an interesting read, and I have a lot of historical books, but I won't bore everyone. It was interesting in 2020, this is a reprint, and this is the foreword, and it was from the Wainscott Sewing Society. Quote, our lovely hamlet of Wainscott would be difficult to recognize by our founding fathers. There were once open fields and farms abounded, and everyone knew everyone else. Today, one is constantly reminded of the loss of the bucolic scene. Houses have taken place of serene landscapes, and many new faces are at the beach and the post office. But the old schoolhouse is still here and still in use. Our chapel, cemetery, many beautiful old homes. We can still find shells along the beach and watch the geese land on Wainscott ponds. Everyone loves Wainscott, especially those who live here. What it shows to me is that people want farmlands abounding, and people want lands to be farmed. I can't agree, and I disagree with sentiments that we should make this property not allowable for environmentally sensitive farming. There's ways to do that. There's ways to have strawberry fields. There's ways to potentially have cows, horses, snails, bees, all this. But if we say we can't do it now during this management plan, it stops that. I think we're doing a disservice to the founding fathers that are mentioned, the Wainscott Dumplings, the comprehensive plan. If we stop the allowance of farming on there, the town board now has spent nearly $123 million on CPF lands in Wainscott, and 560 of those acres were preserved in Wainscott. Out of that, over half of the lands in Wainscott have been preserved either by fee title or conservation easement for the protection of farmlands on there. For us to move away from the way the policies of the CPF lands have been working, and the number one goal for agriculture on this specific piece of property, I think is incorrect for us to do. That's how I feel about that, if you haven't gotten that one. As far as the trail, I like access. I think there's different ways to do it. I think we start off easy as a trail, and if we see how it goes, and it be grass access or not, I'm indifferent to it. Having asphalt works in certain locations. This might not be the location, but again, that's a decision for later on. Overall, I appreciate everyone's comments, concerns on there. I also extremely appreciate the way that the supervisor, when she saw an opportunity to preserve one of the most valuable tracts of land for multiple ways besides money in the town of East Hampton, didn't bat an eye when we came into your office. You said, yes, let's go around to the town board. That's exceptional leadership when you're looking at a piece of property that's going to be the highest price ever paid in CPF history. But overall, these are my beliefs. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit more pointed than before, but I believe history backs me up on this one, that ag should happen on this property, and what type of ag that might be later on is still to be decided. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. So as Kate mentioned, we heard from dozens and dozens of community members about this management plan, whether they spoke at the public hearing or they sent us emails. And it boiled down to three things, right? Agricultural use, the multi-use path, and the landmark designation. So I guess I want to take it one at a time. And it sounds like Ian and Tom and David want to see agriculture here. Kate, you mentioned low impact agriculture and no deer fencing. Could we come to a compromise? Would everybody be open to the management plan rather than just saying that this land may be returned to agricultural use, provided there is a sufficient buffer around Wainscott Pond? Could we all agree that it be low impact agriculture?
I support it as written.
Okay.
Likewise.
So do I.
Okay. So I disagree. I'm with Kate as far as low impact agriculture and no deer fencing.
Just to explain why, because I think that we emphasize the two concerns are the vista and the water quality, and both of those are very clearly drafted. And so any board who's considering the management plan would have to consider the impact of agriculture on those two features. I think we try to get more precise, and I think it's dangerous.
Okay, and I think I look at it as this is a management plan. This is something that it's a collaboration, obviously, between the community and the board. We've heard from the community, and management plans can be amended, but for this point in time, I'm supportive of having it be more pointed and say low impact agriculture. Okay, the second was the multi-use path or loop, and the community is advocating for a mode trail only, and I'm supportive of that. Is that something folks could all get behind?
I didn't mention that, but I would support ADA accessible, non-asphalt path. I think it being ADA accessible is an important component to mention specifically.
I support it as written with the flexibility. I think that, I don't know all of the options for types of paths that exist that can be ADA accessible. I have never heard anything like Tom said that we could provide, wheelchairs or vehicles to get around. So again, I think that I support it as written because I think we can make, within the context of what is written, we can do something that's responsible.
I agree. I think, look, just saying it has to be a grass path is just potentially over restrictive. There are other municipalities that have purchased off-roading machines that, allow people with ADA access issues to access their properties. Even on our town beaches, we have the beach wheelchairs, so I think, saying what the path has to be in the plan might be a little bit prescriptive here.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking for the language of that.
It's on page 7. It says there may be, point 2, there may be consideration for a multi-use path through the meadow that may accommodate a half-mile to 0.85-mile loop. This will require all necessary approvals and permits.
I think ADA should be included in that.
But I think multi-use is.
Is that a way to say it?
Yes, that's correct. And that's how we've used it on the other properties. We have multiple different methodologies of ADA access. We have stone dust and we have asphalt. They all have different forms of maintenance to them on there. I'm comfortable with it as it's
written. You say no asphalt?
I'm comfortable as it's written because no matter what, it's going to be an expenditure, and that expenditure at that time will have to be debated also here and too, or voted upon on it.
Okay, and then the last one is the community is, we put the designation, the historic landmark designation on the two structures. The community is asking for full landmark designation, and obviously, Tom, David, and Ian, you're supportive of it as it is drafted. Kate, you're looking for the full landmark designation, as would I, after hearing from the community, and I would support that as well. But it sounds like we've got the majority wants to go with the management plan as drafted and heard. So I guess that's a wrap.
So next step is a resolution?
A next step would be the resolution to adopt the management plan as heard. Okay, well, that's.
Can I just put a
sure? Yeah. Put up, absolutely.
Committees are supposed to be made up of differing opinions. Even the town boards are. also. And just because you have differing opinions doesn't mean you're not doing it for the same goal, which is for the benefit of the town's residents. I thank your committee, Ian, for putting this together, the Wayne Scott CAC for all their comments, the Wayne Scott Heritage and others on this for trying to, for their insightful commentaries on here, and also the town board for the discussion, Kathy, as you do in your very transparent way of governing by bringing this back for an open discussion on here for us to allow us to express our opinions in open session. I appreciate that.
Yes, I hear.
Okay, so now we can move on to liaison reports. Tom, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. The Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee will be meeting next Monday, the 13th at 6:30 p.m. at the Amagansett School Library. IT, we've been working with IT and the clerk's office. Thank you so much, Michael. Looking just to how we can evolve, residents' ability to process permits online and potentially revamp the clerk's website. It's an ongoing work piece. So looking forward to changes coming to that in the not too distant future. Human Services, beginning this month, Ashwog Hall classes have been moved to the Senior Center. We'll continue to offer Wednesdays, Qigong at 1 p.m. and osteoporosis prevention at 2 p.m. at the Senior Center. Transportation, due to increased demand, the Human Services Department now offers transportation to medical appointments in Southampton Monday through Thursday, with appointment time scheduled 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. To schedule a ride or to learn more, please contact Anthony at the Human Services Department. His number is 631-324-4443. Fire Marshal's Office. We had some feedback from the fire chiefs as to Knox boxes being somewhat problematic. Knox boxes are attached to commercial structures, and inside of them there is a key that allows the fire chiefs to access the buildings in the event of a 911 call. There's a few changes we're looking to bring about to that, but as it stands right now, the chiefs are finding that a lot of the keys in the boxes don't actually work in the properties. So I'd like to do a May work session just to bring some changes to how Knox boxes operate, potentially actually giving the fire marshals access, but that would require some additional equipment on their behalf, such as a safe in their cars to keep the Knox box key in. So it's not entirely straightforward, but just want to kind of do that work session to advise all the businesses out there in the upcoming season.
It would be ideal if we could do it at the first May work session, the May 5th. So just so you know, we're going to be bringing all of the department heads through to talk about their 2025 accomplishments and 2026 goals. And I was going to have at the May 5th meeting, the chief do his 2025 annual police report and have all the public safety folks, as we're, gearing up to the season, do that, have a presentation on e-bikes. And so that would, fit in with, kind of the theme, and Buzzy will already be at the meeting.
Great.
For his presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
Okay.
Sanitation Department, the recent storms we had, while they've gone, we're still cleaning them up, as are a lot of residents across the town. Talking with Craig Vick, who manages that facility for us, he reported we had over 4,000 yards of brush come in from that storm, which is a huge quantity. So a great thanks to that department for helping to manage through that. It's obviously incredibly complex. Additionally, what they've got going on this month, folks, if you haven't already, please remember to get out there and purchase your recycling stickers. They're available at the town clerk's office Monday through Friday, as well as the Montauk Annex Monday through Friday, and they're available at the Sanitation Department on Monday through Saturday as well. And then lastly, with sanitation, I had a meeting this week with the Sanitation Department and LKMA to discuss plans for improving security at the Sanitation Department, including the introduction of license plate readers there. We'll be bringing forward what that proposal looks like in the near future.
Great.
East End Fire Commissioners, this is something, again, that I want to put on people's radar. You may have seen in the press recently that Sag Harbor is moving to an insurance billing methodology with its ambulance service. There's discussion for other districts, potentially there's been presentations done across the town. This is an evolving kind of thing, and I think it's something the public needs to be very aware of, and perhaps we need to actually have a work session on what emergency medical care looks like on the East End, because, you know, that would be a huge change for a lot of people. Their current ambulance service is operated by volunteers but funded by taxes, and a change to insurance has a lot of implications for people in the town. So something I want to keep on the board and residents' radar as we move forward. Disability Advisory Board, I mentioned with regards to the Osborne property. They also wrote a letter to the town board supporting the beautification proposal brought forward by my colleague, Council Deputy Supervisor Lease, for the Amagansett beautification project, just in the fact that it would significantly improve ADA access, which is a major concern for people with mobility issues there.
Can I just add on to that? Yeah. That project, due to contractor timing, is not going to be a project for the spring. It's going to be something we're going to look at after the summer. Everything's a little too tight right now.
That makes sense. I agree with that. Arts Council Committee, there is a community networking event taking place April 17th, 6 p.m. Be taking place at Town Hall. We have a range of presenters coming in, and we'll be sending out some, there should be some ads in the town newspaper, and we should hopefully be doing some stuff on the town social media too on that. Wildlife Management Advisory Committee, I know we pushed out the presentation from the Wildlife Committee regarding deers and ticks. Do we have a date in May we could put that one on for?
Yeah, let me get back to you. And then the reason is it's because on 4/21, I think it is, we're going to have a 5-year analysis of complaints and operations for the East Hampton Town Airport, and I expect that to take up quite a bit of time. I haven't seen the draft presentation yet, but I just know from the past that it's not a quick presentation. Okay. But I will get back to you later this week.
Thank you. Business Committee, we had a very kind of hot debate meeting with the Business Committee. Coming out of that, there's a request from the committee as to whether there's a possibility of the town having a dashboard, you know, giving estimates of timings for permits and COs, and, you know, just as we are introducing all these excellent changes to improve the situation in that office, you know, allowing us to track how things are improving in there. So that was the feedback from them. Emergency Preparedness Committee, we last week completed our review of the different storms, and I'll be presenting those findings and recommendations to the supervisor later this month. And then lastly, YMCA, we have a meeting next Wednesday, the 15th.
Beautiful. Thanks, Tom. David?
As an update about the Net Peak State Parks and their response to the southern pine beetle response, the contractor work ended yesterday. Unfortunately, we do not have a total acres of what they covered as far as the removal, but I anticipate is close to 27 to 30 acres. But a tub grinder was used to chip the material, and it was hauled off site to a contractor to an approved DEC location. The contractor's goal was to reduce the contract that the contractor was on was to reduce fire fuel loads on the ground and access for emergency responses. They got about 5 weeks out of them. They worked very hard. Of course, there was a lot of weather. And New York State Parks crews will be using the forestry mulcher in the western half of the Palmanock Path from Cranberry Hole Road heading east to the Fish Factory Old Rail Spur to clear blockages to allow for better routes and accesses for fire trucks. They'll like to finish that whole entire path in that peak. The state parks will be monitoring regrowth to guide discussions on future forestry management and composition and density of that forest in the area. The multi-year contract for felling will begin once again in December of this year, and that's based on the long ear bat window. It's undecided if there will be any more prescriptive burns, as up to the burn boss, and if that does happen, it would be the area primarily in the Promised Land State Park, and they will let us know. I want to let everyone know that the Army Corps of Engineers is working on and to completion 2 projects in Montauk. The Lake Harbor Montauk project, they are surveying the bottom of the channel today. that'd be the Army Corps of Engineers, for their final survey. We believe that we have finished all of the final mechanical digging of the project to bring it down to 17 feet with 2 feet of overburden, and the contractor is completely demobilizing. We will look to see if it's complete by next week, but that's where that status of that project is some final survey work. Also, the overpasses, the 4 broken overpasses from 23-24 storms, they have been mechanically removed. Those overpasses now are being replanted with beach vegetation and dune fencing. That contractor is working. There's a meeting on it right now. And I believe that they should be complete by Memorial Day also. I want to let everyone know that recreational striped bass fishing is beginning north of the GW Bridge. It started on the 1st, but striped bass in our marine waters starts here on the 15th. Also being knowledgeable what the slot sizes are there, and also as the fishing season begins for blackfish in the region, which actually opened also, then the new striped new slot sizes. We had a meeting last night of the Montauk CAC. It was an updated discussion that we had about an intersection there of South Emory and South Emory, South Elmwood in 27. It's a confusing intersection that we've been looking at. It was targeted in the Hamlet studies and also the traffic studies 10 years ago. That conversation is going to be ongoing moving forward and different options. It also led into a greater discussion of a new business and new building that is being built on that corner also, and what type of environment it will bring to the township on there. And that was a lively discussion that will probably continue on either in emails and social media. So that's what I have for you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Dave.
John Rooney, of course, one more time, we're always looking for lifeguards in recreational park and also for town TCOs.
Thank you, David. Kate?
Yes, I'll start with giving a report on an event that was held last Wednesday. It was held at the East Hampton High School and at the Springs Recycling Center. This event was co-hosted by Long Island Organics Initiative, the DEC, and CTE, which is a resilient climate solutions consultants that were engaged by the DEC. The event was sold out early on. It was the first of its kind held on Long Island. We hosted 40 attendees from across the island, ranging from compost operators, municipalities, local restaurateurs, to community composters. The training was led by James McSweeney, and he also shared the amazing work of Rewild, East Hampton Compost, which is the backyard composting program, which is diverting food waste from the landfill and educating the community. Craig Fick gave a tour of the facility, which was met with awe for their ability to compost and to take in composting materials. I want to thank Steve Lynch and Craig Fick and the entire staff of sanitation who helped make this a very successful event. I know everyone was very pleased with the turnout and with the information that they received, so thank you. The Litter Action Committee is about to introduce you to Citizen Sam, who that is, what Citizen Sam can do, and what you should do because he can. So that's forthcoming for the spring Litter Action Committee push to remind everybody about please do not trash East Hampton, please pick up after yourself, and help keep our area clean, and also reduce the environmental impacts of the plastics and the materials that end up in our water. The grant committee for the Montauk Sustainable Communities Planning Grant we've met with the consultant, James Lima, that was chosen by RFP. We had our initial meeting as per the tasks were outlined to do by New York State. Our next meeting will be with New York State with the consultants. We've just sent out invitations for membership to the Project Advisory Committee, and that once we have met with the state and outlined the engagement timeline. We will then be bringing it to the town board for work session presentation. And of course, the PAC, the Project Advisory Committee, will be appointed by resolution. That will be forthcoming soon. I am also working on a meeting for the county exec for Ed Romaine's office on wastewater, discussion with Montauk stakeholders on wastewater. That'll be happening on April 15th. At the Montauk Library. The invitation list for that has gone out as well. Also, the Energy Sustainability Committee is working on a sustainable landscaping education program focused on affordability. We want to note for town residents the affordable practices and how they can save money with sustainable landscaping. So it's not just about saving the planet, saving our water, it's about saving you money, especially in these times where everything's so expensive. You could save money by reducing your chemical activities, your watering activities, et cetera, and have beautiful landscaping. So we'll be working on events with the Natural Resources Department that outline all the actions you can take to keep your money in your pocket instead of pouring it onto your lawn. And that's it.
Thank you, Kate. Ian?
Yeah, last month, the Springs CAC met, and the main topic of conversation was the Springs parking lot behind the Springs Library that we discussed in a recent work session. As expected, the more that comes out, there's differences of opinions about lighting and details, et cetera. I actually have a resolution that's in the capital plan. I have a resolution on today to bond for that, and then I'm going to dig into a more detailed plan. So I just want to reiterate, I welcome further comments from this board, anybody in the public, anybody in Springs, anybody who cares. Obviously, it'll come back to another work session before anything happens, but in the meantime, any further thoughts on that, please reach out to me as many people already have. Exciting news at the Maidstone Park playgrounds that we discussed last fall or winter. It was obviously a tough winter for construction with all the snow. I know that everybody's playing catch up now, and that was a project that was delayed by the snow as well. It'll commence on 4/27 or thereabouts and should be completed by Memorial Day. So that's very exciting. I want to thank the Playground Committee and the Spring CAC who have been helpful in designing that and patient throughout the process. Ag Advisory Committee will meet this Thursday on April 9th at Suite 111A at 300 Panago Place. That's the same building as the Planning Department, Building Department. I don't have an agenda for that yet, but there's a chance that we'll have an early draft of code changes that the committee asked for over the last several years. I want to thank Brittany Toledano and Tina Lagaren for working on that. It's one thing to say in general the type of changes that they hope to see, and a totally different thing to figure out how to put that into the code. And so if there is a draft ready, it will be rough, but I look forward to discussing that with that committee, with this board, and then the public at large. I forwarded them the accessory staff housing that we discussed today. That's not for agriculture only, but it might apply to some ag businesses. That might be on the agenda as well. And then I've also heard from some members of that committee after the public hearing about the Osborne management plan. And so it may come up just how we treat ag in terms of management plans generally. But again, that ag advisory meeting is open to the public. It's this Thursday on the 9th in Suite 111A at 300 Panago Place.
At what time?
Oh, thank you very much. It's at 5 p.m.
Okay.
And that's all posted on the website as well. We don't have an agenda yet because one doesn't exist, but I have a feeling at least some of those topics I mentioned will be on it. And that is my liaison report.
Thank you, Ian. So I just want to share that the town recently welcomed 6 new full-time police officers following their graduation from the Suffolk County Police Academy. I had the privilege of attending the graduation ceremony. I have to say it's hundreds and hundreds of families were there to support their the young people that were becoming police officers. They had the bagpipes. There's quite a lot of pomp and circumstance, and it's really a beautiful ceremony. Their training covered not only law enforcement, but emergency medical procedures, domestic violence response, anti-bias training, mental health awareness, cultural diversity, counterterrorism, and body-worn camera technology. And we just want to congratulate them and wish them a long, safe, and successful career serving our community. It was funny, it was the Thursday before the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And so their first day on the job was at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. We gave them a couple days off because a lot of the families were having parties for their graduates. And I also want to recognize last week, there was a graduation from the Suffolk County Police Academy for part-time police officers, and we've got 3 new recruits from there. They will begin their field training and are expected to serve as seasonal part-time officers this summer. Next up is, I want to say we are declaring a war on potholes. After 2 major winter storms battered our East Hampton roads, the town is fighting back. Highway crews have been out addressing the potholes and making the needed repairs. The 2026 budget also makes an even stronger long-term investment in our roads and paving. The budget included $2.1 million for road paving, which was a 56% increase over 2024 to help improve road conditions across the community. The folks in Springs know that many of the roads up there in East Hampton have been milled, and paving is set to begin next week. As the board knows, Steve Lynch, our highway superintendent, breaks paving into the 2 seasons. He does a spring paving and a fall paving. Montauk roads are targeted for this fall, and we just want to thank the highway department crews for their hard work after a very tough winter. I mentioned earlier in the meeting, the Latino Advisory Committee meets this Saturday at 8 a.m. Is that this, did you have your Wainscott CAC meeting already?
No, because the holiday Wainscott CAC meeting is over Zoom at 9 a.m. on.
It seems that we've been in conflict the last 2 months where we meet at the same time. Makes it tough on our reporters who have to be in two places at once. And then I think what I'll do is East Hampton and Sag Harbor CAC met last night, but I'm going to punt that to next week because I haven't had the time to take my notes from last night and put it together in a cohesive report. So let us now move on to resolutions. And Tom, you're the first one up.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. So with Resolution 2026-03, this is secret determination to classify action, assume lead agency, and adopt negative declaration for proposed amendment to Chapter 255 zoning. Be it resolved that the East Hampton Town finds as follows: the Town Board does hereby classify the action as a Type 1 action pursuant to SECRA. The Town Board hereby assumes lead agency and proceeds with the uncoordinated review. The Town Board does hereby adopt contents and conclusions set forth in the attached EAF Part 1, 2, and 3. The Supervisor of the Town is authorized to complete and sign the determination of significance of the EAF Part 3, declaring as set forth therein that the action will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and the Town Board does hereby issue the negative declaration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
604 is for a beach cleanup on May 1st and 2nd for Suffolk County Park, has organized a LIBBA beach cleanup at Shagwon Point and Gin Beach on Friday, May 1st to remove washed up driftwood and other debris. And whereas the Town Board Sanitation Department is agreed to accept the driftwood logs free of charge, be it resolved that the Town Board authorizes the Town Sanitation Department to accept the driftwood logs at East Hampton Recycling Center on Saturday, May 1st and May 2nd.
So I think can I just say that in one place it says Friday, May 1st, and another place it says Saturday, May 1st.
Thank you for catching that.
So I was just going to look at the calendar.
May 1st is a Friday, so
it should say.
We could amend the penultimate line to Friday, May 1st and Saturday, May 2nd.
Second as amended.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
226-605 is to authorize employee travel in the sanitation department. This is for Craig Fick, an employee of the town of East Hampton. This is to permit Craig to go to the NYSAR3 Organic Summit to be held May 17th through 20th in Bolton Landing, New York, at a cost to the town not to exceed $2,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's my pleasure to offer Resolution 2026-606. This is to retain Mickey's Landscapes for historical exploration work at the Baker House at Duck Creek, which will be under the care of Robert Hefner to provide historical preservation services. This service by Mickey's Landscapes will not exceed $5,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
607 is asbestos professional services for 220 Gerard Drive, which is a town property that we acquired. And we received a proposal dated 3/19/26 from Silver Wolf Environmental to perform this function at an estimated cost not to exceed $5,430.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 608 is a secret determination for the Lee Hayes Youth Park expansion and building upgrades. And it's for consideration of the town board for bonding for this project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
609 is secret determination for the Montauk Playhouse generator upgrade. Again, consideration here, the town board has prepared it and says there's a negative declaration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
610, sorry, is a bond, $3,850,000 for park improvements. The bond resolution would be for authorizing the issuance of bonds and principal debt not to exceed that amount for construction of park improvements, stating the maximum cost is $3,850,000. And the PPU on this, excuse me, help me, anyone, is
5 years.
5 years, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Flight.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Lease.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Calder Piedmont.
Aye.
Supervisor Burke Gonzalez.
Aye, and we're looking for a grant from New York State on this
Correct.
project. But we have to put the money up front.
Passed and carried. Okay, 611 is a bond for $300,000 for the Montauk Playhouse generator. Again, this is a bond for a replacement generator. The PPU on this is 10 years.
Second.
Roll call, please, Michael.
Councilmember Flight.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Lease.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Calder Piedmont.
Aye.
Supervisor Burke Gonzalez.
Aye.
I'm also exploring a grant for this option too. just
Yes,
thank you.
yes, we're looking at a grant opportunity there.
612 is accept a change order for green velvet landscaping for the Westlake boat launch stormwater project. This is to remove dilapidated fencing. The additional cost of the change order would be $7,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
613 is a resolution to adopt amendments to Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic of the East Hampton Town Code. The town board held the public hearing on April 2nd, 2026. This would be placing no stopping on the following locations of Manor Road and Fort Pond Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
614 is a resolution to adopt amendments to Chapter 240 Vehicles and Traffic of the East Hampton Town Code. Again, changing locations that which have no parking to no stopping. Locations would be Edgemere Street East, Edgemere Street West, Edgemere Street West, and these locations that are mentioned in the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I have Resolution 615, which is accept a grant of a scenic and conservation easement for 124 Beach Lane in Wainscott. Public hearing was held on March 19th, 2026. Resolved that the town hereby accepts the easement listed below. It's the grantor is 124 Beach Lane LLC, and again, the location is 124 Beach Lane, Wainscott. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 616 is the accept of a grant and scenic conservation easement for 59 Sandcastle Lane in Amagansett. A public hearing was held on April 2nd on this proposed easement. Resolved that the town hereby accepts the easement listed below. The The grantor is Charlie O. FP LLC at 59 Sandcastle Lane, Amagansett. Reviewing agency, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 617 is the accept of a grant and scenic conservation easement for 840 Springs Fireplace Road LLC. This public hearing was also held on April 2nd. Resolved that the town hereby accepts the easement. The grantor is 840 Springs Fireplace Road LLC, and no surprise, it is at 840 Springs Fireplace Road, Springs. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 618 is the acceptance of a grant, accept a grant of scenic and conservation easement for 52 Oyster Shores Road LLC. Again, this hearing was held, public hearing was held on April 2nd. Resolved that the town hereby accepts the easement listed below. It's 52 Oyster Shores LLC at 52 Oyster Shores Road, East Hampton. The reviewing agency is the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 619 is to accept security and undertaking for PML Springs LLC Urban Renewal Parcel 116B in SP-2-2. And this is whereas the town board previously accepted an undertaking of security for assigned road work for this property from 116th Street LLC under Resolution 2024-875, whereas the property was sold to PML Springs LLC. Resolved that the undertaking, together with the following security, is hereby accepted by the town. The applicant is PML Springs LLC. The location is 616th Street, East Hampton, that's in Springs, and the amount of the security is $24,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 620, this is a secret determination for Springs Library parking lot. The proposed project is deemed an unlisted action, and the proposed action will not have a significant impact on the environment, and therefore I'm moving for a negative declaration pursuant to secret.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 621, this is a bond for $175,000 for the Springs parking lot. And this is the parking lot we've discussed on the property of the Springs Library. This is the funding.
Second, we'll go to roll call.
Councilmember Flight.
Aye.
Deputy Supervisor Lease.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Calder-Piedmont.
Aye.
Supervisor Burke-Gonzalez.
Aye.
Resolution 622, this is to authorize a payment for Camp Hero 2025 water bill. This is an invoice in the amount of $643.65 to the Suffolk County Water Authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 623, this is to authorize a payment for past invoices for the Suffolk County Water Authority for 20 Dorset. The amount is $67.49.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 2026-624, and this is to hire Forcelli, Deegan, and Toronto Laud for general counsel services for 2026 in an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a walk-on resolution. It's ID 34535, and it's to authorize an employee suspension.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to go into exec
I
session?
have a motion to go executive session for personnel, real estate, and contracts.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, LTV.